Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Peter webinar series for August. If you don't know me, my name is Jamie Garrett. I'm the Head of Sales and Marketing here at Peter. And this monthly program really is designed to provide support and advice and practical guidance to obviously you guys, the business community that we're proud to work alongside. The aim of these webinar programs is to share insights, best practice, some thought-provoking content that can help you guys navigate the challenges and opportunities you face in your day-to-day operations. So whilst today's session is only 30 minutes, we do hope it provides some useful takeaways that you can apply within your own organisation. If you are keen to continue the conversation beyond today's webinar, we also host regular peer groups, peer networking events, which explore the topics like today's topic in a lot more depth. These sessions provide an opportunity to engage professionals from across the region, share your experiences and discuss your challenges and learn from one another in a collaborative environment. So the next event, our next peer group event, is on Wednesday the 7th of October, and then we'll be exploring the topic, the productivity challenge, and is learning solving the wrong problem. It's a free event, and if you're interested in attending, we'll share the registration link in the chat during today's session and also email you guys out a invitation to register for that program. Just a couple of housekeeping points before we get started. Please note that we do ask attendees not to use AI-powered recording or transcript tools during the session. Today's content combines sort of established research and industry best practice, and obviously Peter's own experiences and perspectives. And as such, we do ask that it's viewed with guidance and professional opinion rather than formal advice. We do say that the recording of the webinar will be made available via the Peter YouTube channel within the next 24 to 48 hours. And if you do have any questions during the session, please post them in the chat, and we'll pick those up in a Q&A session at the end of the delivery. So thanks for joining us today. Let's get started, shall we? So here we go. So today's webinar really is all about the appraisal season. It's designed to provide some practical guidance on how to build an effective appraisal process, and the aim is to deliver some value for both your employees and for you as an organisation. Over the next half an hour or so, we'll explore the purpose and objectives of a successful appraisal process. We'll be looking at what you should be aiming to achieve and some simple practical tools that can help you guys get there. We'll be discussing how an appraisal can be used to drive 3 key outcomes: employee engagement, skills development, and organizational success, and ensure that process becomes far more than just an annual administrative exercise. We'll then look at the learning and development activities that should follow an appraisal, and how to turn conversations into action that delivers measurable benefits for both the individual and the wider business. And we'll explore the concept of strengths-based learning and focusing how recognizing and developing people's natural talents can significantly improve that engagement, that motivation, and your developmental outcomes. Finally, we'll explore how you can create a culture of coaching and mentoring across your organisation. We want to enable a development which can become a continuous activity and help you guys achieve some of the strongest returns on investment from your people strategy. My hope is by the end of today's session, you'll leave with some practical ideas that can help transform your appraisal process from a yearly event into a powerful tool for developing people and supporting your organisational success. So let's start first with asking the fundamental question. Do you have a structured appraisal process in place? And if not, why not? Equally, if you do have a process in place, have you considered what it is designed to achieve and whether it is genuinely delivering those outcomes? Is it driving meaningful conversations? Is it supporting your employee development and providing valuable organizational insight? Or has it just become a bit of an administrative exercise across the organization? Many organizations schedule their annual appraisal process around about the sort of their business planning cycle. For some, this kind of aligns with a financial year, or for others, it follows a calendar year, or as we do here in education, you might follow an academic year. Now, as a result, the appraisal activity often takes place during the late spring and early summer months, where organizations are reflecting on the previous year and planning for the year ahead. So sort of about now should be kind of that time you may be drawing this process to a close for the year and considering your actions on the data that you've collated. However, research and industry data consistently suggest that there is a significant opportunity for organisations across the UK to improve the effectiveness of their appraisal process. 1 in 3 companies in the UK don't even conduct structured appraisals, and 62% of employees believe that appraisals have no positive effect to their career or their development. And finally, 42% of HR and personnel professionals don't believe that their appraisal or process is effective. So as we explore today's topic, I'm encouraging you to reflect on your own organisation's approach. Is your appraisal process really delivering that value, or has it simply been something that kind of gets completed each year because it has always been? So when you undertake appraisals, what are you trying to achieve? We've touched on those outcomes of what we're trying to achieve: that employee engagement, that skills development, and that organisational success. One of the most important points I'd like to make today is that an appraisal is not a performance management. It's not the same thing. Performance management should be an ongoing process with regular conversations taking place throughout the year between a leader and their member of their team. Too often, organisations combine the two, and that's where appraisals can be really viewed quite negatively. Employees start to see them as an annual review of what they could have done better, rather than an opportunity for meaningful reflection, recognition, and development. There's also the issue of kind of recency bias. If performance is only discussed once a year, managers naturally then focus on recent events rather than an individual's contribution across the full 12 months. As a result, neither the employer or the organisation really gets the full value of that conversation. So the best appraisals really focus on development, engagement, aspirations, and growth, with performance management handled separately through regular ongoing discussions. So let's have a quick look at the key elements we're looking to achieve in our appraisal process. Excuse me. First is employee engagement. A really effective appraisal process helps employees feel heard, valued, and recognised for their contribution. It creates a dedicated time for meaningful conversations that can often get lost in the pressures of day-to-day work. Most importantly, it really strengthens the relationship between employees and their managers by providing an opportunity to discuss what matters most to that individual and how they can be supported moving forward. An appraisal provides dedicated time to focus specifically on an employee's future development and career aspirations as well. It creates an opportunity to explore those longer-term goals, identify training and development needs, and discuss that potential career pathway within the organisation. It also encourages employees to take ownership of their own growth, help them to create a culture of continuous learning and development for themselves. We also want to be looking at strengthening the communication process. In today's fast-paced business environment, effective communication can sometimes be really overlooked. But by a really great appraisal process, you can provide an opportunity to reset and refocus by taking time away from the day-to-day demands of the role, taking the time away from sort of the management and employee kind of structure. You can really engage in an open and honest and constructive dialogue. It creates a structured forum for discussing successes, challenges, ideas, concerns. It really helps build that trust and transparency and develop that stronger working relationship. What it also does is really promote employee well-being. Appraisals provide a really valuable opportunity to discuss employee well-being, talking about things like your workload, your work-life balance. These conversations can really help identify support that may otherwise go unnoticed and create space for an employee to raise the concerns in a really safe and supportive environment. By addressing that well-being directly, organisations really demonstrate a genuine commitment to their people and reinforce a culture that values that care and support and employee well-being alongside that kind of business performance. And finally, we need to look at that contribution to organisational success. A really effective appraisal process contributes by creating a more engaged, motivated, and capable workforce. It provides that kind of structured opportunity to recognise achievements, support that development, identify skills, the succession needs of the organisation. It strengthens that communication. So when it's delivered really effectively, you're improving your retention, you're reinforcing your organisational values, you're providing valuable insights that can really help your organisation make better people and better workforce planning decisions. But don't take my word for it. I'm a regular reader of Gallup's workplace learning and upskill analytics when they publish it every single year around the springtime. So let's take a look at the data from 2025. Now, if you're not familiar with Gallup, They're one of the world's leading workplace research and analytical organisations. When they publish their findings, it's really worth paying attention because their conclusions are based upon really large-scale data and long-term research, much better than kind of opinion or anecdotal evidence. If you really want to understand what helps employees perform and develop, they're probably one of the most respected voices in the field, which is why I'm such a big fan of looking at their data that they publish each spring. So let's have a quick look at engagement first, as this is probably one of the key outcomes of our appraisal process. Gallup's study demonstrated that if you've got a team with a really high level of engagement, it massively impacts your business performance. As you can see there, the data there screams out. But what's also important is if you look at the biggest influencers on that engagement, which produces that business outcome, a lot of it is driven by leadership. And if leaders impacting this engagement, we've got to look at how they're engaged as well. I mean, these guys are your champions in your business. If they're not engaged, you've got a kind of a bit of an uphill challenge. And then if you look at development, which is obviously one of the key strands of appraisal as well, that is now one of the biggest motivating factors for people to retain or seek new roles within an organization. So what the research really enforces that those three key outcomes that we're looking to achieve through our effective appraisal process are exactly the things that drive organizational performance. We know that highly engaged teams are more productive and more profitable. We know that skills development influences employees' decisions of either seeking new opportunities or staying within the organization. And we know that organizational success is significantly influenced because engaged employees who are supported by effective leaders really provide meaningful development opportunities and deliver better business outcomes. So when we think about appraisals, we should see it as really a strategic opportunity to strengthen the engagement, support the development, but ultimately contribute to the long-term success of the organization that you work in. So a kind of couple of pointers to lean into then, which you can kind of take away and consider. So we've drawn these from a range of different, really reputable HR and leadership sources, as you can see below. The first thing to really kind of think about when you're developing your appraisal process is that managed periodic engagement. Whilst the appraisal itself might be an annual event, the commitments and the development actions that you agree during that discussion should be reviewed regularly throughout the year. So these shorter review conversations really provide that opportunity to assess the progress and address any kind of challenges, adjust development plans where necessary. But more importantly, you're offering that ongoing support to the employee as part of your appraisal process. They also help maintain that employee engagement and ensure those development opportunities really remain on track. The next element is really to make sure that preparation is done very well. An appraisal should never be the first time that either party has ever thought about the discussion that you're going to be having. Both manager and employee should really prepare for the activity of the appraisal process itself. For a manager, they should really come to the appraisal sort of prepared with a balanced view of the employee's contribution across the entire review period, which typically is that kind of annual process. It means obviously reviewing those achievements, the challenges, developmental activities, projects they might have been involved with, feedback they may have received from others, and any kind of agreed actions that you may have had from previous discussions or previous appraisals as well. Employees, on the other side, should really take the time to reflect on the year before attending the appraisal. They should be really bringing to the table information about their achievements, their contributions, the challenges they've overcome, the skills that they've developed, and areas where they would like to go on a further support. If you're not really achieving that, then the appraisal isn't going to produce for you the positive outcome that you really are looking for. What else should you really contain? Well, you should be looking at a performance evaluation. There's nothing wrong with discussing performance at an appraisal. The mistake organizations make, as I mentioned, was turning the appraisal into a performance management meeting. Now, instead of focusing on performance issues or corrective actions, the appraisal should focus on reflection, looking back at what's been achieved, what's been learned, what obstacles have been overcome, and how the individual has grown through the review period. So if performance concerns do exist, they should have been addressed long ago in sort of those regular one-to-one meetings, which means that the appraisal should never be the first time an employee hears of any kind of performance issue. You should be looking at developmental goals. You should be really looking to identify developmental goals through an appraisal, because that development is one of the core purposes of the conversation. If the key difference is that we're identifying future growth opportunities and not attempting to deliver all the development itself in the activity, that's been a really positive appraisal process. Because the appraisal provides that dedicated time to reflect on the skills the individual has looked to develop, and the challenges they've overcome, the capabilities they need to build for the future. So together, between the manager and the employee, they can really agree on a realistically developmental goal structure that supports that kind of career aspiration and the needs of the organisation as well. You should also be looking at pastoral care. Pastoral care is really one area where appraisals can really add significant value, and provided they're approached in the right way, they can be a real benefit sort of culturally within the organisation. It's important to recognise it's not a well-being intervention or a forum for addressing serious issues for the first time. Instead, it should be much more of a safe and structured opportunity to discuss how the employee is feeling, what support they might need, where there might be factors affecting their ability, or in areas they're not thriving in their workplace. Between the employer and the manager itself, it should be an exploration. Looking at any barriers that may be impacting engagement or development. And from a manager's point of view, it should be very much based upon listening and understanding, rather than trying to solve every issue during the appraisal itself. But it's important that pastoral care shouldn't be just confined to that annual conversation. You can really identify needs and areas that require actions for support, but that ongoing conversation should take place throughout the entire year as just part of sort of regular management engagement. The other thing then is working together to set those goals. It should really be a collaborative activity, not something that's kind of imposed by leadership or dictated solely by the employee. The really effective appraisal conversation definitely involves both parties, and they're working together to agree goals that are really meaningful and achievable and align with the needs of the organisation. I've put in here, obviously, the SMART framework. For anyone who's aware of that, it's sort of a sort of standardized business model of how to undertake a goal setting process. But it's a really, really simple way of putting together a way of setting goals for the employer themselves. And the beauty is if the employee is involved in setting those goals, they're much more likely to feel ownership and commitment and accountability. Which again, what that allows us to do is thrive in that engagement pool. It's going to encourage that development and probably increase the likelihood of achieving much more positive organisational outcomes from those goals themselves. Looking into actions themselves, we know how, obviously we've just talked about sort of putting together that sort of positive process. But one of the key components you should consider within your appraisal process is the developmental aspect of the appraisal. Interestingly, whilst most organisations have an appraisal process, there's little evidence that managers are consistently trained to deliver these conversations effectively. Research from HR.com found that over half of the organisations identify that manager training is one of the key priorities when looking at performance management within an organisation. And I think that really demonstrates a clear recognition of the quality of that conversation and how it really, really heavily depends on the capability of the manager who's leading it. So the question mark I ask you to maybe hold a mirror up against yourself and ask yourself is, are your managers trained to deliver effective appraisals? Now, it is really difficult to go out and find effective external training support on how to deliver appraisals because there's so many variants to content and practice and application across obviously a multitude of different organisations across the country. However, in our opinion, we believe that the training really should come from inside the organisation, ideally by the individual who's sort of designed or implemented or is leading the appraisal process. They know how they want that appraisal process to be delivered. And more importantly, they understand what needs to be achieved by undertaking that appraisal process. So if you put a senior manager or a member of your HR team on a simple 2-day train the trainer course, This is much more cost effective and can be delivered in annual refreshers internally within your organization, and will, in my opinion, have significantly more business impact than potentially bringing somebody in externally to train your leaders. You're going to have internal delivery to internal staff for internal outcome, which I think a lot of the time can really be quite significantly beneficial for you. The second thing you should be really doing is collating that data. When the appraisal feedback is reviewed sort of collectively, it can really help identify common themes emerging from the workforce. Now, they may be skills and training gaps, but they also might be things like inefficient processes, reoccurring workload pressures, or maybe trends in employer sentiment or engagement that has a fundamental influencing factor in the culture of your organization. If that information comes through either sort of a senior leadership or a HR process, that information can then give the leaders within the organization a really clear understanding of what's working well and where those improvements need to be made. So if rather than just viewing appraisals as that kind of individualistic conversation in isolation, you can really use that feedback to inform a much wider people strategy, which can then obviously influence stuff like workforce planning, learning and development initiatives, operational improvements. There's quite a lot you can really benefit on. Ideally, on the back end of your appraisal process as well, you should be really utilizing it to reflect on your future succession planning. The appraisals can really play that important role in future thinking for the organization. If you think about the information that you're gathering, it can really help you as an organization build stronger talent pipelines and reduce that risk that is typically associated with key vacancies as they may come up in your organization. It allows you to be a lot more proactive than reactive when those kind of opportunities arise, and you can really proactively develop the people and the capabilities you have within your organization for that kind of long-term future. It also allows you to build a learning and development program that will deliver what's required within your organizations. When that development needs are reviewed across the team, across departments, you can really identify those common themes and obviously create that targeted learning and development program that can really address genuine business requirements. And then rather for delivering training just for the sake of it, you can use that appraisal data to ensure that their investment in learning is focused on closing skill gaps and really preparing employees for kind of future need and future opportunities that is part of the succession planning of your organization or part of the future growth of your organization. There's lots of things you can do when you start to build that L&D program in and around that kind of data. The challenges you're going to have is looking at that cost versus biggest impact. Training budgets, as we all know, are limited, which means that every single developmental activity you need to undertake really has to have a clear purpose and a measurable outcome. What I would say is when your appraisal process is really robust, this becomes invaluable because you've identified genuine skill gaps and genuine developmental needs. So before committing to any kind of developmental activity, leaders should be asking, what business challenges are we trying to solve? What capability are we looking to build? How is this improving performance or productivity or customer service? These are the things that the data you're getting back from your appraisal should really support you on. The other area is looking at logistics. One of the greatest challenges I think, and we're experiencing here at Peter when we're engaging with customers, is not identifying development needs. It's creating the time and capacity for employees to participate in those development needs. It's really interesting. Again, this is data from Gallup. 41% of employees say they just don't have time to learn. 37% of managers say that time away from day-to-day responsibilities is one of the biggest barriers to supporting development. There's a lot of data there that outlines that actually logistics is one of the challenges that really face learning and development professionals in organizations at the moment, implementing really good L&D programs. So when we're discussing that learning and development process during an appraisal, it's really easy to focus on gaps and deficiencies and areas that need improvement. And while some of that is necessary, there's a lot of research to support that actually to make greater progress with individuals, it's really focusing on investing in strength-based learning that's going to be much more benefit. So what you're really looking at there is development is an approach to develop that focuses on identifying, developing and applying an individual's natural talents and strengths. The principle is kind of simple, really. People achieve their greatest growth and performance when they build on what they naturally do well. And so from understanding an individual's strengths, you can really create a developmental plan that builds on existing talents and allows employees to make even greater contribution to the organization. So if you're investing a lot of your energy in fixing weaknesses, it might be worth sort of pivoting your mindset very slightly and really looking at strengths-based learning to take a different approach. It recognizes people achieve their greatest success when they build on stuff they naturally do well. And that's good for the individual, that's good for engagement, and ultimately, obviously, it's really, really good for organizational success. Finally, the other thing I would really suggest you focus on when looking at an appraisal process and looking beyond an appraisal process is identifying a really good coaching and mentoring structure internally within your organization. If you look at leaders who can have a significant impact on employee engagement to managers, internal champions who can really help improve the effectiveness of the appraisal process, people are all at the heart of that organizational success. So to recognize that development doesn't need to sit solely with the leadership team. By building a network of coaches and mentors throughout your business, you can create a group of development champions who can really influence engagement, capability, knowledge sharing, succession planning, and all of this obviously contributes to business performance down the line. It can be really, really valuable when you're working with your experienced employees. You know, you guys all must have those long-serving team members who probably see the appraisal process as a bit of an administrative exercise. They really struggle to identify the further developmental needs for themselves. Or others may have felt they've kind of reached the stage in their career where formal training is not relevant to them anymore. By giving these individuals the opportunity to become coaches and mentors, you can really unlock a really incredible asset, because the skills, the knowledge, the experience, and the lessons they've accumulated over the years they've been with the organization can be transferred across the wider workforce. And that's a value that's difficult, if not impossible, to replace within your organization. The approach does align perfectly with your kind of strengths-based development as well. Rather than solely focusing on individuals who need to improve, it really enables organizations to leverage the strengths and the expertise and the talents that currently exist in your organization. And it provides experienced employees with a meaningful development pathway that does extend beyond their sort of day-to-day role. And it gives them a much greater sense of purpose and contribution and engagement. What it also does, it creates a network which broadens the support available to your employees. So it's not just seen as something that's come from a manager or a leader. Instead, it's come from a part of the organization who knows the organization and knows how it operates every single day. But a good culture there in coaching and mentoring, it just doesn't happen by accident. You do have to make an investment to achieve it. But it does, again, lead to those key things that we're looking to achieve that start off with that appraisal process and end up in that ongoing development, which is that kind of higher engagement, faster skills development, you know, building on those internal skills and capabilities and talent pipelines that can really contribute to the success of your business. So in 28 minutes, that's not bad going. We've explored through today's session sort of the appraisal process. It's way more than just an annual meeting or a form to be completed. And if your appraisal process is just an annual meeting or a form to be completed, it's well worth having a reflection. But when it's designed and delivered well, it can become a strategic tool that helps organizations achieve those three critical outcomes that we've identified, which is employee engagement, skills development, and long-term organizational success. Ultimately, the organizations, I think, that achieve the greatest value from their appraisal process are those who don't just see it as a HR exercise, but an investment in their people. Because when employees feel heard and valued, they become more engaged. When people become more engaged, as we saw from the Gallup data, they develop faster, they perform better, and they contribute more effectively to the organization's goals in the long term. So my challenge to you guys is this, really. When your appraisal cycle begins, or if you are starting your appraisal cycle, don't ask whether you've completed the process. Ask whether it's genuinely helping your people grow. Is it developing the capabilities in your organizations and the needs for the future? And is it contributing to better business outcomes? Now, if the answer is yes, then your appraisal process isn't just reviewing the past, it's help shaping the future of your generations. I do believe that great appraisals don't measure success, they create success. And And that's kind of the kind of message I think that comes out of today when you're looking at appraisals. So that's kind of it for today. As I mentioned, this video will be up on the YouTube channel in the next day or so, so please feel free to share. Let's just have a quick look and see if there's any questions that have come from you guys. 1 second, where are we? In the Q&A or the chat. No, it doesn't look like it. So if you guys have got any further questions, please feel free to reach out to me. You can contact me on my normal email address is jgarrett@peach.co.uk, or drop us a call or engage with your account manager. Please feel free to have a chat and reach out. And like I said, this video will be up on the website in the next, or on the YouTube pages in the next day or so. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a cracking day, and we'll see you soon.